Power Hour with John Lee.
We're going to rock to Brian De Palma. Love Brian. So he is not always respected as much as he should be, in my opinion. And I've selected 3 films of his because he's got 3 that I would consider to be top films. And the first one is Carrie. Maybe it's an acquired taste, Carrie. Maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea. But it's a Stephen King book turned into a really good film, which you got to get some credit for. Because there's been so many examples of really good Stephen King books turned into really bad films, you know, Pet Sematary and Christine and all these kinds of... It, absolutely crap and long. And so to turn one of those horror films, not your Green Mile and, you know, Shawshank Redemption and stuff like that, which is written in a totally different style. No, the Stephen King classic horror stuff. To put that on a screen well is not easy, and he did it with Carrie. That end scene, you know, the school hall, the whatever it is, the prom they call it, and there's blood and all that kind of stuff, and holes is flying around the place, and that's wonderful. And then you've got Carlito's Way. Nothing to do with each other. Carrie and Carlito's Way are completely different. I cannot think off the top of my head of a similarity between the two, which is good. But there are obvious comparisons between Carlito's Way and the third one, Scarface. So what's Carlito's Way? Carlito's Way is Al Pacino gets out of prison trying to find the dream. His dream is to live a peaceful life. But he's got to do a little bit of crime first and then get out of there, which is not easy. Not easy at all, especially not when you've got such a reputation as being a big-time smack dealer in New York. But that's not the film we're talking about. We're talking about Carlito's Way really has a big brother, and its big brother is Scarface, and it's Al Pacino and Brian De Palma collaboration again. And what is it really? What's the story? Well, it's Tony Montana, and he is a Cuban, okay, and he's got an American father, and he travels to America in what's recorded in history as the Cuban crime wave. And he is rough. And more than intelligent, he's ambitious. He's not stupid, but he's not he's not an academic. But he's sharp, he's clever, and he's got balls of steel. Pardon the expression or not. That's the one I'm using. He's got balls of steel. And that's really the kind of crux of the whole film. And he comes to America and he's got the American dream, and he wants to be rich and he wants to be powerful and he wants to be a million miles away from where he is and what he is at the start of the film, which is poor and oppressed by Castro and by Batista before that. And of course by American imperialism and Spanish imperialism before that. And so it's a long difficult history for the Cubans. And he arrives in Miami, and he's not taking any prisoners and he's not asking any favours. He's just taking what he wants. And that's what the film's about, really. And so how does Brian De Palma choose to tell this story? Well, he uses, for his own reasons, and I don't mind it, he uses pictures of a dream. So if you go back to Carlito's Way, there's a prominent imagery where there's a picture, you even find it at the end in the train station, right? Where it shows people silhouetted on the beach. And as you zoom into it, the girl starts dancing. Yeah? So that's the dream. That's what he wants to do. That's where he wants to be. He wants to be on a beach, not in an ambulance. And Scarface is very similar. So, for example, we've got a scene in the food truck where they work, the little restaurant, street restaurant where they work, and behind it is a poster of something quite similar, of a dream, of a fanciful destination where everything is okay. And we pan down and back from that to show the reality of where they are at that point, which is working in the kitchen of this food truck in most unsalubrious circumstances. And Tony Montana is not feeling it one little bit. He wants to be out there selling that yayo not scrubbing dishes. But we can see that juxtaposition between the reality of the moment and the beauty of the dream, you know. And I think that's what he's trying to get across all the time, Brian De Palma, with that pictorial representation that he uses so much. And he's often accused of bad framing. And I understand why. When you watch his films, you think, really? Do you know what I mean? Tony Montana's in the bottom of the screen like that, in the bottom corner. He's his star. Why have you got him in the bottom corner like that? And then just off, it's just a lot of the time it looks just off, where if you did that at college or university and you handed it in, you guarantee your tutor's going to give you a D or whatever, or a C. He's going to take marks away from you because he's going to say, well, that framing's terrible, man. You know, read a book. That's shit. But Brian De Palma does it constantly, and I don't think it's an accident. I think he's doing it when he's doing it. And it's a kind of exhibitionist scale, right? So Tony Montana is larger than life. He's a massive character, huge in terms of his energy and his power as an individual. And he's smashed onto the screen every time you see him. But physically, he's a small dude. He's Al Pacino. He's a little guy. He's not big, he's not tall, he's nothing in that sense. And so Brian De Palma's constantly playing with that. You know, he's saying, we're all big and we're all small. It just depends on the context. And he's doing it constantly. So when you see those scenes, and you'll see Tony Montana, and he's in the bottom of the screen, he's talking to people across the table, and he's bottom right. And he's talking to them, and as I say, you think, what are you doing there, Bri? And then in the next scene, he's come round to something where Tony Montana is very centralised, and the framing's changed entirely, and you think, actually, you do know what you're doing, don't you? And now he's dominant and he's prominent in the scene, you know, from being small and seemingly insignificant and injured. He's bleeding. And so Brian De Palma, I think, is playing with that idea of, you know, sometimes you're a windscreen, sometimes you're the fly. And it always gives Tony Montana a chance to just jump onto the screen from that position to that. Bang. Really well done, I think. And back to the story a little bit. For me, if you're going to talk about arcs, I think we're going with a car crash to car crash type arc. Because at the start of the film, as I say, he's more or less a refugee. He's been expelled from Cuba for not having the right attitude or whatever. And he's arrived in America and he's poor and he's basically pissed on by everybody who looks at him, including Latinos. Nobody rates him, nobody respects him. And he goes through all this journey of death and conquering other people and other gangs and all that kind of stuff to become the hero of the piece, and at least in his own mind. But he's just not. Do you know what I mean? He's not a hero. He's an anti-hero, yeah, sure. But he lacks class. He's got no style around him. He's got no panache. He doesn't know how to carry it. He looks out of place constantly, and this starts to play on his mind. And then there's also the realization that he doesn't really like the dream. I mean, what a terrible fucking surprise. You know, you spend all your life with just a tremendous determination to get somewhere, and then when you get there, you don't like it at all. You know, he just finds it kind of flat and uninspiring. It's just cocaine and sex and violence and big houses, and he's thinking, fucking hell, is this it? Is this all there is? And so you've got that silk hat on a pig thing, you know, where he's got the houses and he's got the cars and he's got, you know, the opulence, but he hasn't got the class. He hasn't got the education. And you're also putting a crown on a peasant in that way. So, yeah, you've got the crown, mate, and you are the king, but we don't respect you, really. We tolerate you because we're afraid of you. But, we still consider ourselves superior to you. It's just that we're absolutely terrified that you might kill us and our families. And so I think that's the message of the film for me. Seems to be careful what you wish for, or at least that's one of the messages of it. Before you embark on a 20-year killing spree to try and get somewhere, make sure that somewhere is actually where it is that you really want to be. And so, yeah, Scarface, absolutely magnificent film.
Too far, Tony.
I ain't not, Mel. You are.
can't shoot a cop.
Whoever said you was one?
Wait a minute!
Sure, man. Maybe you can handle yourself one of them first-class tickets to the resurrection. Fucking punk. So long, man. Have a good trip.
Fuck you! Okay. Do you want to play rough? Okay. Uno. Say hello to my little friend! Okay. Do you want to play rough? You want more?
One of my favourites, really long one, but I bet I've seen it 30, 40 times. And definitely, for me, in the pantheon of great films. Now we're going to hit Mr. Ridley Scott. More successful brother of Tony Scott, who directed True Romance and Domino, which are identical, actually, in terms of the way that Tony Scott filmed them. So what's Ridley produced? Well, a lot. But the ones that I've selected, the top three that I've selected from my perspective, are Alien, which is an absolute milestone for women because Sigourney Weaver's character is the main character of the film and is a soldier, and I think she's a scientist as well. And, there's nothing about it that's gender specific. She is what she is, She is the most qualified, most intelligent person on that ship and in that circumstance to deal with the situation, and so she does. And it's not heavily laden with these gender references all day long, You don't have to lay it on with a spoon. It's just there. She's doing it because she can, and it's great in that sense. And then we've got a completely different kind of film, which is Gladiator, which kind of sealed the deal with those kinds of films, because we'd had Spartacus many years before, and that was considered to be the greatest kind of Roman epic, maybe along with Ben-Hur. And Ridley comes along with Gladiator and kind of remakes it. And between Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix and others, you get a tremendous, tremendous film. Real attention to detail on that. And the computer animation is done well. It's not like a Michael Bay film where it's completely unnecessary. And masturbatory as well. No, it's there because it needs to be there, otherwise you can't have the film. And the third one I wanted to look at in more detail was Blade Runner. Now, my mate Johnny Spence told me to do Alien, and I wanted to, but I didn't in the end. And he's going to say it's because I'm too scared to watch Alien, but I deny that. So, Blade Runner interests me on so many levels. What is it about? It's set more or less now, made in 1982, but it's set more or less now. And we all know that when you watch these futuristic films, from the context in which the film was actually set, you think, oh my God, that's terrible. That's not actually the case, not in every way anyway, with Blade Runner. It's quite good in the way that it predicts the society that we live in now, on many levels anyway. So what's the crack with it? Humans have gone out into space, doing what they do, conquering places and taking what they can. And as part of that, they've invented kind of artificial intelligence, humanoid robots that are called replicants. They look and talk and act like humans to a large extent, with some differences. They are stronger, they are faster, and they have a more kind of fluctuating emotional spectrum. So they'll go quite childlike to quite angry, because they've only got 4 years lifespan. So they're kind of rushing to develop these emotions and not really taking the time that we would to develop it. And so that's a problem with the design that we explore. And so we'll look at the film itself. When you're actually watching it, what do you see? Well, prominently at the beginning, you see pyramids. So if you watched last week's Power Hour, I was talking about Teotihuacan being a city in Mexico with pyramids of a particular design. And when you watch Blade Runner, there are ships coming in from the sky, docking at this one main particular central building, the design of which is exactly like those pyramids, but massive and black. And I don't think that's a coincidence, you know. I think that many people have looked at those pyramids and wondered who built them and what they were used for. And so we see those pyramids used in this design. And apart from that and a few Coca-Cola signs, the place is an absolute shithole. I mean, there's no nature. No trees, no flowers, no parks. Not so much as a pretty girl. It's just dark and it's raining all the time. It's real dystopian stuff. And these replicants, you see, they're only given 4 years to live. So just returning to the general idea of it. So Harrison Ford is the bounty hunter, really. It's a bounty hunter story, essentially. And he's been told to find these replicants who've gone rogue and kill them, eliminate them, which is easier said than done. And he does that. He basically goes through them with relative ease. He takes a few licks every time he encounters one of these people, but he kills them with his gun. And then we get to the scene, which is definitely one of the most beautiful shots I've seen in cinema, where you've got Rutger Hauer on the roof, and he's just saved Harrison Ford's life. Harrison Ford's character is trying to kill him, and he saves his life. You see, he's artificial intelligence, remember, and he's sitting on the roof in the rain, and he's talking about the things that he's seen in space with such incredible intensity, and he's talking about his life, you see, and he says that we all disappear in time like teardrops in the rain. And that's when he looks at Harrison Ford and you realise he's crying. You just can't see it because it's raining. And also there's that place in history motif there where you're all important for a short time, but then you disappear like a teardrop in the rain. And so we're looking, really, for me, this film, more than anything else, is an examination of the human condition. Why? Because these replicants are essentially terrified of death. They know they've got a 4-year window that they can't extend, and they don't know exactly when they were born. And that's similar to the human condition. So they've got that fear of death. And also, they are humanoid creations, right? They were created by us in our image. And they look like us and they talk like us, but they're just a bit better in certain fundamental ways. And that's precisely what we're doing now. I mean, are we really far away from that? No. No. And when are we doing it? At the fucking same time that they were saying we'd be doing it back in 1982. Ridley Scott was making this film 40 years ago. And that part of it is more or less the same. We are creating humanoids in our image. And in the film, the question is, should we really be valuing their lives on the same level as ours? Are they human? Are they less than us? What is our attitude towards them?